Welcome to the TREPX Podcast. TREP is short for entrepreneur. One of the most meaningful and rewarding, yet difficult challenges you can take on. The TREPX Podcast gives you actionable insights, real examples, and success X factors from experienced entrepreneurs as we are learning, living, and sharing in the exciting endeavor of entrepreneurship. Now here's your fellow entrepreneurial traveler and host, Micky Deming.
Hello, welcome to the TREPX Podcast. This is Micky Deming, and I am excited about today. Have another interview to share. Had a chance to interview Dave Schneider, the founder of ninjaoutreach.com. Ninja Outreach is a pretty cool tool that helps you reach out to influencers and reach out to prospects, reach out to people that you want to get in touch with about growing your business, about asking them questions. One of the things I've done in the past to grow Kahuna Accounting is reach out to a lot of influencers just to interview them. Not for a podcast, but just to interview to learn. And this is exactly what we talk about in this interview, and something Dave recommends is just to get on the phone with people who are in your niche, who are in the space that you're trying to get in, and his tool makes that a lot easier. So in this interview, we talk about Dave's story, how he has started this and gotten a little bit of initial traction, but then we also get into some of the specifics on what you need to know if you're trying to do this, if you're trying to make this a channel for getting your name out there, to be featured on blogs, be featured on podcasts. There are right and wrong ways to do it, to reach out to people. And there's ways to reach out to people where you're only thinking about yourself that is going to get ignored and deleted every time. So Dave is definitely an expert in this space. I learned a lot from him, and he shares how to do it in a way that adds value to the person who is featuring you. And so to make it about them. Because when you do that, then you can almost make it a no-brainer, make it easy for them to say yes. So definitely enjoy this interview. You can check out Ninja Outreach at ninjaoutreach.com. I think it's a cool tool that a lot of this audience could get value from, so definitely check it out. And you can check out the interview at trepxgroup.com. And also, while you're there, check out our Quick Surf on LinkedIn if you want to grow your business using LinkedIn. It's another great tool to use for outreach and for connecting. So head to trepxgroup.com/learn to see that. And, of course, enjoy this interview with Dave Schneider. Hello, Dave. Welcome to the TREPX Podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing well. How's it going, Micky?
It's going fantastic. I'm really excited. I'm excited to dive into all aspects of outreach and just a great way to grow a business in a way that a lot of people just get wrong. And so I'm excited to hear some of your expertise on it. But first, I want to know more about your story. I know you founded Ninja Outreach. How did that come to be?
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep a long story short. I've actually only been doing sort of online business entrepreneurship for about 3 years, which, as a tenor is not really that long. However, it's been one of those large, up and down 3 years. A lot of different kind of crazy events happened, and basically, my girlfriend and I, we started traveling around the world when we quit our jobs back in 2012. We went backpacking, traveled to 40 countries, and decided, we were going to try to work online as a way to earn a living. During that time, we started kind of building websites, running blogs, selling advertising, and built a nice little business for ourselves that was able to pay our way for the travel. And we ran that for about a year and a half. And there was a problem with that business. Now, I'm obviously fast-forwarding over quite a lot here, but about a year and a half into that business, there was an issue, and that was that we were pretty much selling advertising on websites. It was known as like link selling. So we were selling to brands in the travel niche about getting links on websites. It was very dependent on sort of Google's algorithm and essentially how they viewed the sites and the advertising. And in January of 2014, that whole business really collapsed, and it just kind of imploded very, very quickly. And it went from sort of a 5-figure-a-month business to like a $5 type of business. So it's really, really just kind of pulled the rug out from under us. So this is kind of where we get into Ninja Outreach, because we were at a bit of a crossroads where we had, we were looking for, a new business to start, and we were looking at software as a possible solution for this, and the reason was that it was the exact opposite of everything that we had been doing. It was, stable, recurring, real product, not built on algorithms. So I started kind of thinking about software. I started kind of looking at my own itches. What did I want to scratch? I had been trying to do some content promotion and was kind of frustrated with some of the blogger outreach programs out there. Connected with 2 other entrepreneurs online through a podcast like this, and then we got started on Ninja Outreach.
That's cool. That's fantastic. So when did that actually launch?
Well, we partnered up in June of 2014. They had a very, very basic MVP. It wasn't even really ready to show anyone yet, but it was actually like a kind of a proof of concept, at least from a technology standpoint. We spent another 4 or so months building the product, trying to build up a list of potential beta users, and launched the beta in October. Had a couple hundred people try it out, and then launched it live in January of this year.
Okay, great. And I'll ask about that launch, but just to so all the listeners are on the same page, can you describe what Ninja Outreach is and what it does?
Yeah, Ninja Outreach is a blogger prospecting and outreach CRM. So you can run keyword searches in our tool, run through our database, find bloggers, leads, websites, organize them into lists like a CRM, and then outreach to them via email all within the application.
Awesome. And so that concept of reaching out to blogs, can you talk through kind of what is the goal? Like, what is the problem you're solving, and what are, it's for entrepreneurs, for marketers. Talk about some of the benefits and what that can do when it's done well.
Sure. So the target audience for the software is startups, entrepreneurs, digital marketers, and agencies, e-commerce websites. It is kind of a generalist marketing tool if you're looking to do outreach. So outreach it has a lot of different shades. There's direct outreach for lead gen, like if I'm just trying to make sales. There's the outreach that you might do to try to build links or to promote your content or to run an expert roundup or to find a guest for a podcast. I mean, it's a very sort of generalist term, which somewhat leads to sort of a generalist tool. The problem with outreach, one of the many problems with outreach, is number one, it's very difficult to sort of find people and sort of qualify them all at once. So sure, you can go into Google and you can run a search for entrepreneurs or entrepreneur blogs, for example, if that was the niche you were targeting, and you'll come up with some. But finding the names and the contact information and other data points about them, like their social following and things like that, all in one place, takes a very long time, very manual process. And outreach in and of itself is already a very manual process because it generally involves sending emails and communicating and things like that. So really that just adds sort of insult to injury. What we've done is build already a database of millions of bloggers and leads that you can search through, as well as the ability to import your own. So if you already have a list of 100 or 1,000 websites, you can import your own, get contact information, things of that nature, and then run an email outreach campaign to them. And because it's a CRM, we're sort of tracking the results, tracking the replies, the sent history, and just the actual process of sending emails is quicker because we have custom templates, custom fields. So it really just is meant to sort of streamline the process of outreach just to make it go faster. Yeah,
that's great. And I want to get into some of the specifics inside that, but I want to keep going with your story because I think it's interesting. The link business really became a non-option in January 2014. So when you were looking to start this, were you doing anything to supplement income, or were you like, no, I really need to get this to take off? Where were you at that point?
Well, the link business had done very well. It was because we're not talking millions here, not that well. But for two people who have been backpacking in third world countries, we ended our trip after 2 years and hadn't touched our savings. So we had built the savings that we had built to go travel. We then had time to put that into another business. And the link business dropped pretty quickly, but we could kind of see it coming. It wasn't necessarily like tomorrow it was gone. It was kind of like January it was great. February was half of January, March was half of February, April was half of March. So the writing was on the wall. We had a little bit of time to kind of react to it. So essentially, we were in a situation where obviously we could see the income was drying up, and we did want to kind of move into something quickly. I had two things that I was thinking about. One was kind of start a personal brand blog. This is what I did with Self-Made Businessman, so it's just kind of like a personal entrepreneurship blog, and then the software business. So luckily, We have had the time to try to grow the software business because it absolutely has not been at all a quick source of income in the least.
Right.
And if anyone knows anything about software, and I wouldn't expect everyone to because it's kind of its own niche, it's not a quick start. If you're looking for like quick money, start a service, start a productized service, maybe you can maybe make sales that day or like that week. But software, where you kind of have to continually build a product, there's already competitors out there who have better products, build an audience, takes months. So luckily, we were kind of prepared in that regard.
Yeah, that makes sense. You had a runway built up, and the software at a subscription, monthly recurring is nice, but it takes time to build it up. So for you, that initial traction was key. So you said you launched to a couple hundred people, I think. So what were some of the things you did initially as you were launching to get some traction?
Well, as a way, first of all, I guess in terms of actually building up that launch list, surprise, surprise, we did a lot of outreach. And this was where we would start kind of almost beta testing our tool before we were beta testing it, as a way to see if we could find bloggers in the marketing space who we thought would be interested in a blogger outreach tool, build up a list, reach out to them. We would look at, people who were using the competitors, who were the logos featured on their site, who were the testimonials on their sites, who were writing product reviews about them. Anyone we felt was somehow connected to the space and could be interested in this new tool that we were putting out. This is also sort of the customer development that you might hear a lot about in sort of the lean startup, which is kind of like really kind of understanding that this is a pain point for your customers beforehand. So we did get some validation, at least in terms of people telling us that, yes, this is a problem. Yes, there are other tools out there, but they haven't really solved the problem for us. And yes, we'd be interested in considering another tool, which is kind of fuel to move forward, but it's hardly, money in your pocket. In October, we launched the beta. If you've been through a beta launch, the idea is essentially to try to pay very close attention to the people using the tool. Don't just kind of put it out there, but we scheduled meetings with everybody who would have a meeting with us to watch them use the tool, to get their feedback, understand what they liked, what they didn't, and try to understand when we thought it would be ready to launch, and that was after about 2 months or so.
That's great. And so in the initial, when you were outreaching, were you was it basically surveys? Were you trying to get conversations with them? What were you trying to how were you doing that?
Mostly we were trying to get people on the phone. I always feel that the phone is really the best way to just kind of almost allow the conversation to organically go in whatever direction it is, because for example, there would be one lady who we called her and we were talking with her, and we found out she used one of the competitors. And now it's like, okay, now it's a totally different conversation. Now I want to hear about what you think about that tool, what you like, what you don't like, that sort of thing. Before I even got on the phone with her, we didn't know that she was using one of the competitors. So what would have been maybe a standard Q&A of 5 questions about blogger outreach now became a much more comprehensive customer development and competitive analysis conversation. So in general, we try to get everyone on the phone. Naturally, a lot of people don't feel like getting on the phone. So if people say, hey, look, I'm really not interested in getting on the phone, we'd say, okay, well then can you answer these questions? And would you mind if we contacted you later when the tool's ready? And that sort of thing. We didn't even ask people necessarily to opt in to a newsletter. We just said, hey, can I write your name down on a list and we'll contact you in a few months.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. I think that's the best way to learn, especially when nobody knows who you are. Like that's one way to build a rapport with somebody is to just ask them a lot of questions. So I think that's really good. And so now the product is fully launched and out there. It's not in beta mode. And are you still, I think, using a lot of the outreach techniques to grow it?
We do, but we've kind of expanded like the marketing efforts since then. So we started a blog obviously back in June when we knew we were going to do this, because we knew that inbound marketing was going to be a cornerstone of our marketing. I mean, we sell a tool that's $29 a month. You can't go walking door to door to companies and ask them to sign up and expect to pay your way. So you've got to generate inbound leads through SEO and content marketing, things like that. Inbound takes a long time. So we started in June, and it honestly took about 6 months to really get any traction whatsoever. And then in January, we had I mean, we're not talking large numbers here, but we had a couple thousand visitors a month, at least enough to kind of get a funnel going, and then have sort of grown it from there. So we do a lot of inbound marketing. Mostly we do guest posting, product reviews, things of that nature. I go on podcasts like this, but we also do try to run direct outreach campaigns to people in the influencer marketing and blogger outreach space, because it's frankly just really easy to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And even just to your point, the way I had heard about you, I was on a mailing list for SumoMe. They did this traffic 1 million campaign, and you were a guest post on it, and you had a really, really cool post. I want to actually ask you about the post, but first I want to ask, like, how did that gig come about? Because that was a huge amount of people that signed up for it. How were you able to get on there?
Yeah, that one was really that one's kind of an interesting one, and it's honestly like it's really the buildup of several different events that kind of allows something like that to happen. So firstly, I had been doing a lot of guest posting. I've written like 75 guest posts in the last 9 months or something like that. Basically, just kind of getting my name out there and Ninja Outreach's name out there too. We're certainly not a household name by any stretch of the imagination, but more people do sort of kind of know who we are, recognize the tool sort of in the space, multiple impressions. So essentially, that's building up credibility. Naturally, at this point, I'm not thinking about, SumoMe's Traffic 1M course that they're launching in October. I'm just thinking about, in general, trying to build up brand equity, credibility, things of that nature. In August, we got featured on Product Hunt. That was a very also direct attempt. We contacted influencers who we saw were contributing to the Product Hunt community. After about 2 weeks of trying to contact influencers in Product Hunt, one of them agreed to take a look at the product and then featured us. So we got featured on Product Hunt. That sent a lot of traffic and leads to us, and just kind of also got me looking at Product Hunt a bit more as well, because I was curious kind of, what's going on and everything like that. So for the next week or so, I was looking at Product Hunt. When I was looking at Product Hunt, I saw that SumoMe was launching their Traffic 1M course. They had like a landing page up, and they had put it on Product Hunt as well, and of course it was right at the top because it's SumoMe and Noah Kagan and everything like that. And the minute I saw that, I said, I really want to be a part of this. So I outreached to them, and I said, hey guys, I see you've got 16 experts featured here, but I think I could definitely contribute a topic that maybe you don't have covered yet. What do you think? And the guy wrote back to me and said, oh, I've seen your stuff. It's good. I saw you on Boost Blog Traffic. I saw you on Unbounce with 2 posts that I had written, in August. We got some dialogue going, and they agreed kind of to basically let me in as the, the last expert on the list there. And just a quick note about really, we'll call that like an outreach success story. It's obviously not necessarily easy to replicate, every time you want to, but timing is really everything with outreach. The reason that we got the time of day from SumoMe was because they were, knees deep in that course. That was probably everything that they were thinking about in terms of that team. They're thinking about that's where the main focus is. So for me to kind of kindly present myself as, hey, would you be willing to add another expert to this? I'd be happy to give some free content, was just very topical. It was very top of mind. And since then, we've had, several people mention that they saw us in that newsletter because, they have a massive newsletter. And then we asked for a referral to get onto AppSumo. So now we're doing a launch on AppSumo as well. It's all about it's all about really kind of leveraging, the first interaction go from one to one to one. Somebody always knows somebody else important, and just trying to kind of go from opportunity to opportunity.
That's great. That's a really good story because there's several important things in it, and I think we can get into all of them because they're related to what you're talking about in doing outreach the right way. And a lot of times people think short term. 75 guest posts. I'm sure, for the first several, you probably didn't see huge results. I mean, was it more cumulative as you kind of kept building those up?
Definitely. Firstly, it's cumulative in the sense that you can get bigger opportunities once you've just built up credibility. So some of the more recent ones we've done, like Boost Blog Traffic and Unbounce, which are like pretty well-trafficked blogs in our space, sent us, the most leads out of all of them, right? And they also are the ones that I might reference when I'm reaching out to something else, like the Traffic 1M course. And then also there's just, I think, the general sort of organic traffic that you kind of build a lot through the guest posting. So for us, again, I mean, we really don't get, massive numbers on our blog. It's not like Kissmetrics or anything like that. But, in January, I forget, we had a couple thousand visitors a month. And then in August, we had quadrupled that. Not just in August, but over the course from January to August, we had sort of quadrupled the traffic. And it was largely from, the guest posting, the product reviews, the organic traffic that got built up, things like that. And we get people who email us. We try to, if I remember, which unfortunately is not as much as I would like, but if I remember, I asked them how they found us. A lot of people mentioned, they found us on this blog and things like that. It works.
Yeah. It's great. Well, I mean, it speaks to just the work you got to put into it. And some people look at guest posting as like this quick fix, like, if I can just get on this blog, then, I'll get this massive traffic and everything's going to be great. But you're saying like it's a continual, nonstop amount of effort that you're putting in. But then, you get to a certain point where you can kind of parlay those wins into bigger wins, and then all of a sudden stuff starts happening that you don't even expect or plan for. Can you talk about like where do you see people go wrong who think, I want people to see my product. I started a software business and I want people to see it, and so I want to get featured on blogs. Where do they go wrong in approaching that?
I think where some people go wrong, well, specifically with software, I guess, and blogger outreach is, number one, a lot of people just they want to do blogger outreach, and they're kind of telling themselves that they value blogger outreach and what the bloggers are contributing, and yet they aren't really willing to give anything to the blogger or their audience as a means of saying, yes, I do value what you're contributing. They kind of want something for nothing. So for us, whenever I do outreach to a blogger and say, hey, would you be interested in kind of reviewing the product or featuring us on a post, or letting me guest post, we always say, hey, look, I'll give you free product. I'll give some free product to your audience. We have an affiliate program. We go 50-50, very high commissions, and it's just kind of state, we know that you're putting in work. We know that we put in work, and we value you guys as much as, we value the effort that we're doing to kind of build the tool and the outreach. And people are a lot more on board with that. And some people, and I honestly think it's sometimes just more about the statement. Every time we always offer to give things away to the audience. Most people aren't interested, to be honest. At least they don't want to follow through with it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I do think that at least kind of saying that you'd be willing to do that is enough to say, yeah, I recognize that, you're running the blog and it's hard work and you're putting a lot of time and that you've built up this audience and that there should be some value for them. So we're a startup, it's bootstrapped, we don't have a large marketing budget or a marketing team at all. So everything that we do, we never pay anybody because we can't, we can't really afford to. So everything is always, giving away product, affiliate program, things of that nature.
That makes sense. And yeah, it's making it about them. And it's the same thing with your outreach to SumoMe, and you said, like, here is something that you're doing right now, and here's something that I think I can contribute to it. Can you talk a little bit about that messaging, and just how can you do it to make it about them, and whereas most people are going to be like, here's me, and here's why I'm great, and here's why you need to listen to me. How do you make it about them and make it valuable, and how you reach out? Yeah,
absolutely. So when we do see, I always look for, it's almost like, it's sort of an icebreaker, I guess, with any blogger that we talk to. And not every one of these results in a success story, but I do think at least the strategy is correct. So, for example, if I see, on Neil Patel's blog, Quick Sprout, that he's doing like a nutrition blog challenge or something, he's trying to grow his nutrition blog to 100,000, I'm going to reach out about him and say, look, Neil, I see that you're doing this nutrition blog, and I think that blogger outreach could be very helpful in you building your traffic. I'd be happy to kind of give you guys free use of the product to test it out. I'd just be looking almost for, maybe like a testimonial or something like that. Just seeing something like that, or maybe not even anything, honestly, just to kind of get him to use it, so that it would be something that he might link to later on. Now, honestly, Neil didn't reply to that message. It isn't a win every time, but he has linked to us on his blog, and maybe it's because, he was aware of us from one thing or the other. Maybe it was that message, maybe it was something else, I don't know. But that's kind of the idea, similar thing with Pat Flynn in Food Trucker. We reached out to him, it was like probably almost a year ago, and we said, hey, I see you're trying to build up Food Trucker, which is his niche site for food trucks. would you be interested in a blogger outreach software or where you could try to do blogger outreach to kind of build up the audience for it? He was interested in that. He was interested in trying the tool. Unfortunately, at that time, it was only a desktop application for Windows only. We didn't have the web app out yet, which we just released in like May. So he wasn't able to use it because he uses a Mac. But we really should have followed up about it. And as usual, we just got bogged down with other things and forgot. But again, it's kind of that's the idea of looking for something that's really topical. Like, what is that person thinking about? Because on the reverse, if you ever sit in your inbox and somebody sends you a message about you're knee-deep focused on knee-deep focused on growing Ninja Outreach, and somebody sends me an email about some other project that I guess maybe I'm technically related to, but really not thinking about that much, that's automatically just going to get kind of, oh God, it's just like I'm just not really trying to focus on that right now. So that's basically how you pick the opportunities. The messaging is, I think, relatively straightforward. It's just very personalized towards this is what you're trying to do. This is how I think what we're offering could help what you're working on. And this is how I think, maybe we could get some value out of it. So, if you would use the tool, maybe, you talk about it, write about it, things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's such an easy way to create a win-win, like when you approach it that way. And I know you talk about podcasts, and so we're on a podcast right now, and I can say just as an interviewer, I love it when people want to be on. I think like when people have something that's valuable, like they're an expert in, those are interesting to me to ask about because their expertise is then helpful for all the listeners. And I'm not even thinking like, oh, let me bring you on so I can promote your product. It's more like, let me promote your expertise so people can learn from it, but it naturally promotes your product. And so I think the podcast is a huge way that people can get in front of people through outreach. Is that something that you've spent a lot of time focusing on, and can you talk a little bit about the benefits to podcasting?
Definitely, yeah. I've tried to do as many podcasts as I can. I really personally just enjoy going on podcasts, kind of talking with an individual, telling the story. I always find each one is kind of unique and interesting. I think they're somewhat, maybe almost underrated. A lot of people are, well, number one, a lot of people I think are hesitant to do direct outreach to podcasters, but in my opinion, and we run a podcast on Ninja Outreach, it's a little bit of a chore finding podcast guests who you think are going to be interesting. I'd say there's as much value in having somebody present themselves, to kind of be on the podcast, than necessarily like how many people are going to email me and invite me and that sort of thing. So I don't think that you're just kind of bothering somebody. I think that they would prefer to just have the inbound leads come in and be able to sift through this one's a good fit and this one's not. That's number one. Number two, just in general, compared to say like a guest post, for example, I just find that it's a lot less work to do podcasts. It's like you show up to be a contributor. From my end, for example, because I can show up for 45 minutes. I know my story, and I know hopefully I know this expertise that I might have, and I can just sort of talk about it. Whereas a guest post can really take me sort of many hours to write. So I've definitely been on somewhere between 1 to 2 dozen podcasts since we launched Ninja Outreach. And we get inbound leads from them who say, I heard you on, John McIntyre's, email podcast or Entrepreneur on Fire or other podcasts that we've been on. And I think that you build a connection with the audience much more through audio than you do through writing. People relate to you. It's like, oh, you've got a voice, and they understand the way that you talk and things like that. So whether or not the audience is the same size, I don't know, compared to maybe a typical guest post, but the connection that you get with the audience, I think, is a lot stronger. So definitely, podcast is one of our go-to outreach channels.
Yep, I think it makes a ton of sense. I think everything you said is right on, and I agree. Like as a host, when people come to me, that I'm always thankful because I'm like, if you have something interesting to share, then let's do it. Like you can always make it worthwhile, and so it's good. And you brought up something important too, is where you talk about you don't worry about if you're bothering somebody, and I think that goes for anything related to reaching out and kind of the idea of a cold email. Like this is coming. You're not asking for this email, but there's a way to make it where it's not so cold. And how do you kind of coach people through that? Like where, I know I need to be getting my name out there. I need to be getting featured on these things. I need to just have people interacting with what I'm providing, but I'm hesitant to reach out because I don't want to bother people. I don't want to be annoying. Like, how do you talk through the mentality in that mindset?
Yeah, I think one of the issues is that if your goal is to bother nobody, then it's true you probably shouldn't do outreach, because you absolutely are going to bother some people. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of the nature of sending somebody an email who you don't really know. Mm-hmm. It's almost impossible really not to bother people, certainly at scale. That said, I've seen a lot of different outreach emails. I've obviously done a bunch myself, and I've received quite a few as well. And there's some that I look at and I go, this is very good. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to say yes or that I'm interested in what he's doing, but I feel no hard feelings towards a person. Like I don't harbor any anger towards them. I've seen other ones that I really don't care for that much. One of the ones I received recently, on the surface, it seemed like a good outreach email. It was well written. The grammar was correct. The person sort of established credibility, but I just felt it was too pushy. And, he was kind of saying like, well, I'd love to talk to you about, the fitness, and then we can schedule this call, and then we'll decide what plan is right for you. It was like he had already kind of just thrown me all the way down the funnel, and we were already going to, it's like I was opening up my wallet right then and there. I really didn't care for that. I actually wrote him back. I said, I think that this outreach message was a little bit too much. Maybe dial it down a little bit. It wasn't, whereas, I've had other people who reached out to me, and they just said, look, some people will reach out to say, sorry to bother you, but we're a startup, and you kind of know how the hustle goes, and I hope you understand, but we'd love to if you would consider X, Y, Z. And I do understand that, because we are a startup, and I totally get where they're coming from with that, and I go, don't worry about it. I understand kind of where that's coming from, and the answer still might be yes or no, but I don't like having any bad feelings with them. So, the safest way is obviously, to sort of engage with the person, beforehand. So what normal people will sort of recommend is things like comment on their blog, follow them on social media, tweet their posts, things like that. That stuff I think is good and it works. It's obviously tough to do at scale, but it is sort of the right way. A couple other things that maybe people wouldn't think to do, but I think could also be effective. Number one, signing up to somebody's newsletter and then replying to the autoresponder series. In this sense, you've almost kind of turned it on its head a little bit, because they're emailing you, actually, when you've signed up, and now you're replying to that message, and you can kind of, reply to that message and then also, be a little bit salesy or kind of pitch what you're looking for. But in that sense, it's, I feel like you can't really fault the person, because look, you send an email to them, and most people are happy to kind of cater to their newsletter subscribers, because they recognize that those people are kind of their dedicated fans, and they can tell that it's a reply to a newsletter series. So they're very good about that. So if you're comfortable signing up for some different newsletters and using that to kind of piggyback off or to respond, I think that's kind of an underused method that works pretty well. The other is kind of also like asking for a referral or an introduction. So, for example, we recently got an email from, I've been trying to get on HubSpot's blog for months now. I went through their regular channels. They have a thing, how to write for us and stuff like that. I sent them an email through that channel, never heard back, just got lost in space. I had another person, some other person from HubSpot who I connected with and asked them for an introduction, and it just kind of ended up falling through. Finally, I had someone from HubSpot reach out to us, asking if we would be willing to put a link to their new product Sidekick in one of our posts that was about finding email addresses. And I said, sure, but in return, would you be willing to introduce me to someone who runs the blog? They said yes. They made an introduction. The person, kind of vetted me, and now I have a post coming up on them, in the next month or so. So it's just like, if you can kind of work the channels a little bit, that's also an excellent way too.
I love it. I love that tip on replying to the newsletter. I'm going to try that. That's really smart.
Yeah. Thanks. It's not mine.
That's really good. Well, this has been an awesome interview. I think a lot of cool takeaways. So I appreciate you coming on. Where can we find out more and check out Ninja Outreach and all that you're up to?
Sure. I mean, we're 100% kind of focused on Ninja Outreach, so we're at ninjaoutreach.com. I follow us on Twitter at Ninja Outreach. Send me an email, dave@ninjaoutreach.com. And my Skype and phone number is also on the website. So we're always happy when people reach out to us. We get outreach. I get that. We encourage it, so it's fine. Best opportunities for us have always come from somebody shooting us an email or us shooting someone an email.
That's cool. Yeah, you can't really slam people for reaching out to you.
Exactly. Yeah, unless they do it sort of the wrong way.
That's true. Then you can coach them up. Well, Dave, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Lots of good takeaways. Thanks a lot, and best of luck with Ninja Outreach.
Thanks, you too, man.
Thank you for listening to the TREPX Podcast. For more episodes, interviews, and business growth tools, please visit trepxgroup.com.